Hello, everyone. Welcome back to day 11 of the Regeneration Series Marathon review. Once again, I'm joined with Luke.
Yes, hello everyone, and it is day 11 of our Advent calendar where we talk about.
The brink of death. We're doing something a
Mm,
little bit different. We're going into sort of, I guess, our comfy slipper era. We're talking about Big Finish, which we do a lot. And of course, us being us, we've got to talk about Big Finish on Doctor Who. And we're taking a look at the Sixth Doctor's regeneration story on Big Finish. Not a Spiral Scratch, not Times Champion, but Brink of Death.
yes, indeed. And I suppose because it's Colin's last performance in the role. Well, not his last performance as the Doctor chronologically.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
and it's him actually performing it rather than just words written in a book or such. So, of the expanded media options for a Sixth Doctor regeneration story, this feels like the most fitting and also the most well-known one. I think it's the one most people probably accept. If they accept any, this is the one they accept.
I think as well there's a big buzz around it. Like if you're getting into Big Finish, this is probably a release what catches your eye as well.
Mm. It was such a monumental release back then, though, wasn't it? Because box sets weren't as common. I think this was the first time Colin Baker really got a box set.
Yeah, I
And it
think
was in this nice book format that they had, that limited edition, which is still actually being sold, I think, on the
yeah.
website. All this, I think it was limited to 10,000 copies, but they've still not got rid of them all.
It's
They
always
must
on
be whittling.
sale.
Yeah, they must be whittling their way down now.
Hmm.
Uh, but yeah, it was this huge landmark release, really, for 20. Uh, was it 15? I want to.
2015, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
So we just had the new series announcement, and then about a month after we had this. So this was a great time to be into your Big Finish or get into Big Finish, really.
Yeah, very much so. And it's funny now looking back at how we just get seem to get stuff like this all the time now from Big Finish. Like it's 4 box sets a month. The
Yes,
landscape definitely has switched a bit, become a bit more pricey. And so yeah, it's crazy to think about how much has changed since this one's come out because now so much almost stuff on a par with it comes out and is then just forgotten about within a week, really.
yeah.
Whereas
There's
this,
no pedestal release of a month, really, where like that's the main focus of that month. Whereas
mm,
before it'd be like, here's your main range. You might get here's your fourth Doctor, then you might get your special release once in a while.
yeah, that was it, really, wasn't it? And I mean, in terms of special releases, this definitely ranks high up there in terms of just the event nature of it because regeneration stories aren't something that happen often in Doctor Who. Just by the very nature of it, it can only be one for each
Yes.
Doctor, really. And so for Big Finish to have the chance to do their own one here is something really special. But I suppose, shall we return now to 1980? Well, five really instead, or even four, where Colin Baker's era began, and talk about his TV run a bit because we skipped over that a bit last time, didn't we? With
Yes.
the twin dilemma. We're
Oh,
saving. Uh,
oh no. Um, do we have to talk about Colin's era?
well, we could just skip straight to Brink of Death if you want, but I feel
uh,
like the viewers will probably want us to give a little bit more on.
yeah.
They want us to
I
suffer.
mean, I'm gonna be honest. Colin's era is not for me.
Hmm.
Moving on.
Are you more of a season 22 or season 23 kind of person?
I don't. I don't know, to be honest. Like, I wouldn't say Colin's a doctor I gravitate towards when I'm thinking of putting a DVD on. Um,
Yeah. I
because
mean, the one I gravitate towards most is probably the two doctors. And that feels kind of cheating because am I gravitating that towards that because of Colin or because of Patrick and Fraser being
I mean, I love Mark Lorani, but I feel like with
right?
Colin's era, you've really got to be in the mindset for Colin.
I think similar to the Jodie Whittaker era, it's a particular style, isn't it? And if
Yes.
you don't get along with that style, you're not really going to like any of the era, particularly season 22.
Mhm.
I feel like it starts to shift a bit when you get to 23.
Yeah, because season 22 is just Doctor and Perry probably stuck in the TARDIS for part one, and that's it. Like Revelation of the Daleks, like Eric Saywood has no intention of writing the Doctor and Perry at all. He's more interested in writing his own characters.
It's a very awkward shift to the 2 45-minute episode format, isn't it?
I think that's what just doesn't work for me, to be honest, with season 22.
Yeah, I think that's the other thing, isn't it? It's harder to stick it on because you got to stick it out for longer to get through it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like I do engage a bit more with season 23. I feel like the character of the Sixth Doctor there has softened a bit.
Yeah, you see it straight away with Perry, don't you, in the forest of Mysterious Planet?
Yeah, they're getting along much better, aren't they? Nicola's getting to wear a bit more now.
Yes, she is.
You can just put her foot down a bit there and has gotten to wear more clothes for that.
It didn't last long, only 2 stories.
Yeah, but there you go. And then you've also got Mel coming along in rather unconventional fashion because she never got a traditional introduction story.
Big Finish comes in again with Wrong Doctors.
Yeah. Or no, actually. That's not technically her introduction story.
I always thought it was her introduction story. I'm a fake fan here.
That's how it's made out to be, isn't it? But
yeah.
Actually, I remember listening to it and it doesn't quite work out that way because neither of the doctors that come along in that story end up leaving with her.
Okay.
Yeah, that's true.
So, all right, that's that little fan thing ruined.
Yeah, I think, isn't it 2 males in there as well? Because one's like the one who's actually from Pease Pottage before she travels with the Doctor, and then you've also got Trial Doctor dropping off Mel from then. I think is how it works. I
think you're right with that.
It's been a while.
Yeah, it sounds about right.
Yeah, certainly she doesn't quite have a introduction story yet, at least in terms of Big Finish. I think there might have been a book or something that did tackle that.
Yeah, there's definitely some book or cover that.
Yeah, somewhere someone's gone in and
canon plastered it.
Yeah, but it said you got Terror of the Vervoids, which has its own sort of like separate version from the trial, doesn't it?
Which is very good.
Made a special edition. Yeah, that
very good.
If anything, that might be my go-to Colin story.
Yeah,
a bit like cheating. But yeah, overall, I do really enjoy Trial up until part 14. I feel like that's where things fall apart a bit with that one. And when you look at the behind-the-scenes drama going on with it, you kind of see why that was the case. Like, it was very much just them wanting to get a functional half hour of television out in the end.
Do you think you'd have preferred the original season 23? Or are you happy with Trial? Because Trial feels very meta in a way, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's nice to have like the show on Trial at the same time as the Doctor is, isn't it? Really, is how it works out.
Yeah.
And it's funny having like that 14-part epic, supposedly, even though it's much more, 4 stories together with an overarching story.
With many zooms of Colin's face.
Yeah. So many cliffhangers for that, aren't they?
Yeah, which is like, come on, guys.
Yeah. But it's interesting, like, when you're getting into Doctor Who and you see that, you think, oh, he's got a really epic conclusion to his time on the show, doesn't he? But no, it's not actually his conclusion. When you look at it in terms of Big Finish, this is still, like, very early days for his Doctor, really, because it's finishing his travels with Perry for the first time, and then we eventually get older Perry coming along, and then you've also got Constance, Flip, Evelyn, of course, Charlie for a while, and then
Frobisher.
Yeah, Frobisher. Hebe now as well, alongside Mel. Like, there's so much going on that comes after this before he eventually hits his head on the console and regenerates in time in Irani. Or does he? We'll get to that. But yeah, TV run, I think it's fair to say we're both a bit on shaky grounds with that one, really.
Yeah.
I think you can, as much as we love the show, you can see why it was in trouble around this time.
Mm.
Yeah.
The cracks really are showing, to be honest.
Yeah.
And that's not Colin's fault by any means. Before people get, oi, why are you hating on Colin? No disrespect to Colin, only love for Colin.
Yeah, we will get around to praising Colin very soon because after he left the show, well, got fired really, wasn't it? Because
That's who left.
after trial, they were allowed to continue the show for another 14 episode season, but they had to get rid of Colin. That was the one of the conditions that John Nathan Turner had for carrying on the show. And so he was offered time in Irani. He said no, quite understandably, really, I'd say.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, as fans, it would have been nice, but I think in that situation, he owes the BBC and the fans nothing. Like, he's been shoved out the door. They can't then come back to him to say, "But can you film this final scene for us?" Like, no, I think he left. It was right for him to, I suppose, keep his dignity in that moment, really.
Well, I think from the way Colin was speaking when he started out on the journey, like he wanted to do it as long as Tom. He wanted his Doctor to have this big arc of mellowing and softening. And I don't think the cards were dealt right from the get-go. He was sort of in a failed position straight away.
Yeah, I can see that.
I think the show was already on the chopping block even before. I think Warriors of the Deep is the start.
Yeah, that's the one that's often cited. That's the clip of the Merca breaking into the base is what Michael Grade really used to criticize it.
So I think the cards were already dealt before Colin even landed the part.
Yeah, certainly the crosshairs of the sniper were already on Doctor Who by that time.
Yes.
Yeah, it was certainly in a bit of trouble. But yeah, certainly, I don't think a lot of the decisions made after that didn't really help the show as much either, sadly. But yeah, Colin quite rightly refused to come back really after the way they treated him, and so Sylvester McCoy instead had to don a wig and be there for that post-regeneration moment. He became the Sixth Doctor for about 2 seconds. But yeah, we will talk more about that tomorrow. Time in Irani. But yeah, for now, Colin then went on and appeared in a couple of different things, didn't he?
Yes, he did the Ultimate Adventure. John Pertwee did a couple of months, and then they did like a little baton relay, and I think John did half the country, then Colin did the other half, I think.
Did Colin get the northern half by any chance?
I think he did.
Is that how it just feels like the way it would be done? And
I think you had David Banks in between when John wasn't feeling too good with his back or whatever. So you sort of have a weird... Yeah. It would be interesting to experience the Ultimate Adventure as intended, not the Big Finish adaptation.
Yeah, the stage. I mean, I wonder if they could maybe get like a modern Doctor back to do something similar one day.
I mean, could you imagine for like the 60th anniversary we get something wild like that?
Yeah, just a stage play going on.
I mean, we haven't.
I feel like that would sell out even more now.
It would, because like the day we're recording this is like the day I went and saw Doctor Who live, which was sort of like a live theatre thing, because it was like a stadium thing. You had like, it was a sequel to Carnival of Monsters, like Vorgenson being like Vorg's son from Carnival, and you had like the mini scope of the monsters coming out. Like, I feel like the Matt Smith era really capitalized on the theatre aspect. Like Doctor Who Experience was an immersive theatre piece, and then you had like the Crash of the Byzantium as well. That was a little so Doctor Who's touched on the theatre thing, but it's kind of been lost. I think we should bring that back.
There's that immersive experience thing this year, was it?
Yeah, Time Fracture.
Time Fracture. Yeah, that's it.
But you want your Doctor Who in it, you know?
Yeah, that's it. Really. I expect for the Ultimate Adventure, Colin sort of had a more muted color scheme, didn't he?
Yeah, it was red and purple, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was still like the same silhouette, but a bit more muted colors. Not quite as garish on the eyes. I mean, we're sort of skipping ahead a week here, but it's funny watching Time and Arani and seeing, not skipping ahead a week, skipping ahead a day. We're doing these daily. Come on, keep up. It's only really strikes you how ridiculous that costume is when you see someone who isn't Colin Baker wearing it.
Spoilers. I think McCoy really rocks it though.
Oh, that really?
Yeah, I love McCoy in it.
You get that on the disc art for the first disc of season 24, don't you?
Yeah, I think this story really started I think Time to Rye really started my fascination with a future Doctor in the previous incarnation costume. Like I'm like, that's a vibe. I like it a lot. But yeah, that's tomorrow.
Yeah, and I see. Well, going even further into the future, I feel like the new series does it even more, doesn't it? Where you often will get the Doctor in that costume for the whole episode, for the whole like first story.
Yes.
A lot of the time.
Yeah.
Like whereas often with classic Doctors, they'll switch costumes straight away. I mean, in Patrick Troughton's case, he literally regenerated with his clothes with him. So then, he also did Dimensions in Time, didn't he?
Yes.
There with his shorter hair.
And then he did more than 30 years in the TARDIS with Nicola, which is nice.
And then finally, in 1999, a little company called Big Finish rocked up and said to him, "Do you want to record some Doctor Who audios?" I mean, this wasn't the first time actually that he played Doctor on audio, because he did Slip Back back in the 80s. Yeah, that's available to listen to on the 22 box set, isn't it?
I can't say I've experienced Slip Back, you know.
No, I haven't either, really. I think, isn't it just those two in it as well? Or are them?
I can't say I know, to be honest.
Yeah. But yeah, anyway, Big Finish came along, snapped him up, and sort of gave him Evelyn as a companion. And that was the starting of the mellowing of his Doctor. Like you said earlier, that was his plan, to mellow his Doctor over time. And Big Finish finally came along and gave him that time to do that. And a lot of people sort of saw that as the rehabilitation of his Doctor and the mending of the fans' relationship with his Doctor, really, wasn't it?
Yes, because he recorded the Whispers of Terror, and I think he took Nick aside and was like, "This is great and all, but this is not the way I want to go. I want to go do it my way," which is obviously the softening of his Doctor. And I think for many people, it opened their eyes of how good Colin is as the Doctor. Especially I think Evelyn mellowed him a lot, having a more older companion, and I think that's probably what was needed on screen, actually, to have sort of Perry as sort of, you need like a mediator between Perry and the Doctor in season 22.
Yeah, it's weird how you have a Doctor who really sort of needed a bit more of a bigger TARDIS team, and that was like just after they got rid of that, because with Peter, he was surrounded by different companions. Like he always had 2 or 3 at a time, and then suddenly it was just whittled down to Perry by the end, and that's all Colin really got until then Mel comes along, and it's just him and Mel for his final 6 episodes. That's what I feel like. You sort of get a glimpse of the softened 6th Doctor, and maybe it's a reason why Terror of the Vervoids is a go-to for me in that story, because I think Colin knew then that this is a bit in the future for him, so he can play it much softer there.
Yes, that's true, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that very much does come across, as well as just season 23 in general. I think the 6th Doctor is somewhat softened, mind warp certain moments aside.
Yes.
But yeah, and I mean, it really does go more full on in Big Finish, though, doesn't it? Because he's almost unrecognizable in a way, but he's very much the Doctor, even more so the Doctor than he was on TV, really. He feels right, and you finally see that Colin really was very well cast, and almost feels quintessential in a way when it comes to Big Finish Doctors.
See, for me, I always point out Masters of Earth as, if you're not a fan of Colin's Doctor, listen to Masters of Earth and tell me he's not a good Doctor, because I feel like that really shows Sixie at his best.
He's very caring towards Perry, isn't he, during a very tense situation.
But him sacrifice, like willing to lay down his life because, like, if the Daleks find out that he is the Doctor, then he's like, kill me. Like, I feel like it has the darker edge of what you get in season 22, but you have the softer, like you say, caring nature for Perry with what happens with Perry within the story.
It's sort of like why Caves of Androzani works so well, in
Mm-hmm.
that it's very bleak surroundings, but you have this very kind-hearted Doctor in the middle of it.
Yes.
Whereas you sort of have a similar thing with Vengeance on Varos, where it is this very harsh surroundings, but you've got a Doctor who has a bit of a harsher edge within that as well, and so it doesn't quite reach the heights that Caves of Androzani does, despite that same sort of bleak setting.
Yeah. Do you have a favourite Colin Big Finish story?
I mean, Masters of Earth, like you say, that's definitely got to be up there.
Yeah.
That was my first one as well for Colin. And yeah, I just love that story. There's one really strong moment in there where he's talking to another character. I can't remember who they are, but he says, like, you pick your friends carefully or something, and then and us and your enemies, and the Doctor replies, they usually choose me. And I think that just sums up the Doctor, really, doesn't it?
Yes.
He's not out there choosing enemies, they're the ones who choose him. And yeah, there's just something wonderful about that line, and Colin's performance throughout, brilliant stuff. So yeah, I mean, Masters of Earth is always going to have a place in my heart, really, partially because of nostalgia towards Dalek Invasion of Earth for me. Also, it's just a very good story in its own right.
Yes.
Another Dalek one that's great, Emissary of the Daleks, a bit more fun. It sort of feels more like a third Doctor story at times, doesn't it, in the comic booky pulp action adventure style, but it has a heart to it as well.
Yes, I'll agree with that.
Yeah. What about you? What are some of your favourites?
Oh, I'd say Project Twilight's a go-to for me. I really like that one.
That's another very dark one, isn't it?
Yeah, I like that. And then what other ones? Jubilee's a good one, obviously. Anything with Davros, Colin and Davros are a great pair. Like Curse of Davros.
That's got a wonderful little twist in it with them.
Yeah, anything with Davros is great.
Plight of the Pimpernel, more recent one. I love that one. Chris Chapman, brilliant writer for the Sixth Doctor. And yeah, it really does test the relationship of Perry and the Doctor. You could tell it's younger Perry again in this one, but it does feel like it is set right towards the end. Like, I think it probably comes in just before the start of trial.
Yeah.
Because it is very much about the Doctor being really tested, and you see how much Perry has seen him grow, and she's sort of scared for him that he's slipping back into how he was before, just because of how much certain events in the story have tested him. So yeah, that's wonderful stuff, and it really is a strong one for their relationship as well. On top of that, it's just a very fun story with some great twists and turns throughout it. So yeah, Plight of the Pimpernel from more recent times is a brilliant story.
Hour of the Cybermen's another good one.
Yeah, that's very solid.
Yeah,
that feels very 80s as well, but it doesn't feel necessarily like the Sixth Doctor's era either. It feels like its own thing that could have been made in the 80s. It feels like what the Sixth Doctor era should have been. It feels like what Attack of the Cybermen should have been.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah. So then, now, he did a lot of stories between 1999 and 2015, but he wasn't quite ready to hang up his coat necessarily and actually do a regeneration story. You know, he'd sort of been joking for a while that because he never technically regenerated into Sylvester, he was the incumbent Doctor for all this time, and everyone after him was an imposter Doctor.
Illegitimate.
Yeah, that's it. But instead, he finally accepted that it was the right time for him to have a go at doing his own final story. I think it was David Richardson who talked him round to the idea, wasn't it?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah. And so The Sixth Doctor Last Adventure was announced, a four-part box set featuring stories from throughout his life. One of which, the first one, The End of the Line, featured Constance Clark, who hadn't actually been introduced by this point.
Yes, it would be a
Yeah.
month before she debuted in Crisscross.
Yes. I mean, speaking of that month before, I think you've got a bit of trivia there, haven't you?
Yes, this was originally going to be coming out in September 2015, but Amazon had it for like £25, and Big Finish thought, no, we can't have that. So they pushed it forward a month so they could get people to buy it off Big Finish because we're impatient fans will spend money to get
Yeah.
the thing early. So yeah.
Yeah, I think, and that's all like the beginning of their current policy, isn't it? Where now things are like exclusive to the Big Finish website for 2-3 months sometimes before they're available elsewhere.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's normally
and
like a month in advance, isn't it? Now you get stuff.
yeah, that's it, really. That's it. Any other trivia for this story? For
When
this set?
David Richardson recently was stepping down as senior producer, he was asked what five releases are you proud of, and this was on the list in no particular order. He's like, I'm pleased that we're able to give Colin a goodbye as the Doctor.
Yeah. But it wasn't a goodbye from being a Doctor because, as we say with things like Plight of the Pimpernel, he has still been playing the role very much since. I mean, the very next month after this dropped, he had the beginning of a trilogy with Constance Clark, of course. And so I think there was some fans like around the time there was a bit of confusion that whenever they saw Sixth Doctor Last Adventure and weren't quite as tapped into the Big Finish sphere of Doctor Who as we were, sort of thought this was Colin leaving for good. But no, it was just chronologically him having a final story, really. So yeah, that was all the events that led up to the Last Adventure being made. And it's four mostly separate stories, really, isn't it? Like there's sort of an overarching story involving the Valiard, but the Brink of Death, the episode that we are going to be talking about, is very much the regeneration story of the Sixth Doctor.
Yeah, Brink of Death's a weird one because it's not really a regeneration story. It's leading to a regeneration, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because you've very much got it at the start of the next story still. But I suppose it's in the same essence as the War Games, really, because in that you don't necessarily see the Second Doctor shift into the third. And now obviously Big Finish has come along and plugged that gap again with Beyond War Games.
What they do best.
Yeah, they love plugging them gaps. And I think that was one of the things, wasn't it, to convince Colin to finally plug this gap between Ultimate Foe and Time and Irani. So, but yeah, it does certainly take elements from Time and Irani itself, and you do even get a cameo from Sylvester McCoy at the end here.
Yeah, it's not a spoiler. It's been out 7 years, so you know. It's fine.
Yeah, he's on the cast list.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, we will be going into spoilers with this story as we go through the synopsis. So, I mean, it's what we've been doing for these past load of stories, but it's a bit different with this one because it is much more locked behind a paywall, really, isn't it?
Yeah, you have to fund it.
Yeah, and it's also a bit more recent in terms of it coming out in 2015.
Most recent
rather than
classic
back in the
regeneration.
80s. Yeah, it's true. So yeah, we'll be diving into that synopsis right now.
Synopsis time. So we have quite a bit of an action-packed start, don't we? Really, with the story, we have.
It dives into the middle of another adventure, doesn't it?
Which Nick Briggs, I guess, likes doing. Really, we have Mel on like a crashing like pod thing. Is it like little spaceship thing?
Yeah, or like a speeder skimmer thing.
Yeah. And she's trying to get the Doctor's attention. Doctor appears. They crash, inject a seat. They go back to the TARDIS. Happy times. Colin.
It's not just showing business as usual before things go downhill a bit.
Yeah, and Sig Doctor bangs his head, and the Valiard appears, and he is now the Doctor, which I guess Is it a reference to like He Jest of Scars? Because that was like an Unbound where you had Bonnie Langford and Michael Jaston, traveling together. Um,
Yeah, I suppose it could be along those lines. Yeah,
uh,
and Mel doesn't really notice the change, does she? She just
no,
sees this strange man and just thinks, yeah, that's the Doctor I've known all this time, really. And it seems that, based on lines that are said later, it's not even the Valiard just in the Sixth Doctor's costume. It seems he's wearing his old Valiard get up with all the black and stuff.
See, I thought it'd be like more like an Edwardian version of it, with like cravat.
Yeah, that could be
That's
it.
how I pictured it.
Yeah, I suppose a bit more just First Doctor, really.
Yeah,
Hmm. But yeah, and then that's the pre-title sequence, really, isn't it?
pretty much.
Cut to the titles, and then after that, we're trapped in the. Well, actually, no, we're not trapped in the Matrix quite yet. First, we have our sort of pseudo companion for the story. What's
Janesta.
Janesta? Yes, arriving on the space station from Trial of a Time Lord.
Hmm.
Yeah, and she is there to do some. I think it's being decommissioned, isn't it? The Time Lord's
Yeah,
getting rid of their dirty old secrets, so she's just there to look over everything,
and
sort of
mop it all up,
catalog it
really.
all, yeah, get it ready for demolition. But instead, in a Matrix window, the same one presumably from Trial that the Valiard used to escape through.
Yes,
Uh,
probably.
yeah, she hears a voice coming from it. It's the Sixth Doctor, the one that we know, not the one that the Matrix believes to be the Sixth Doctor after the Valiard takes his place. And he is in a bit of trouble because he is getting erased from the Matrix. The Matrix sees him as just a glitch or an echo of some kind. But he is able to convince Janesta to save his life or spare it, really,
Mhm.
because he still has that threat of being erased looming over him. Only he is protect. He's got like a stay of execution, hasn't he? Janesta's halted the protocols, but he's just got 6 minutes to work out a way to save his life.
Which feels very Moffat-y, I have to say.
Hmm. I mean, this whole story is quite Moffat-y in a way, in that it
Mm.
is very non-linear after a while,
Mm.
and it certainly throws different expectations at you. It's not the usual regeneration story.
Yeah, because just going back, we do have some foreshadowing of Lacursha at the beginning that we don't want to go to that system because there's radiation what's lethal to only Time Lords. Mel will be fine.
Yeah. And so instead they went to, well, they aimed for Zastros 8, this nice little technological paradise, but instead ended up on Zastros 9 with lizard police of a totalitarian regime hunting them down.
Business as usual,
Yeah, pretty much.
pretty much. So after that, we have the Valiard and Mel on Plastinius.
Mm.
We have Mel being sidelined while the Valiard goes off to a volcano to begin his scheme, really.
Yeah. Oh wow. Not even begin it really. It's all like it's all happened off screen, so to speak. His scheme's already done. He's just topping up on some needed resources.
Oh yeah, yeah, because it harks back to Red House, isn't it, with all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, that's sort of where a lot of it is set up. But yeah, meanwhile, Mel's just left in the market, isn't she, of this place that she describes as sort of a bit early 70s, late 60s, far out and such. But yeah, there she meets the, well, Janesta, really, who points out the doctor to her, the real doctor, and says, "Do you know that man at all?" She's like, "Nope, never seen him before in my life."
Hmm.
Yeah, so the doctor then follows the Valiard up the volcano. He's collected his gases, heads back to the TARDIS where the doctor confronts him, tries to get Mel's attention, but, the Valiard's just laughing in his face and heads off.
While the countdown as is it Nemites keep eating away at the Sixth Doctor as the
Yeah, the Nathamus is what they're later
Anathemas.
revealed to be. So they come from the moon of Lustinius, the Valiard collected them all before the moon was converted into like a powerhouse of some kind for the planet. And he basically promised them a brain to feed on the doctors. So back during the Red House, he sort of inserted them into the TARDIS's telepathic circuits, didn't he? And from there, they latched onto the Doctor's brain and have been feeding on it ever since, until the Valiard was ready to strike and take his place.
And become all Time Lords. Very master end of time.
Yeah, he very much then goes into the Matrix, doesn't he? And starts taking over other Time Lords, which we see happen to Genesta's boss, and then eventually Genesta herself towards the climax of the story.
Which is quite heartbreaking because the Sixth Doctor has quite a big soft spot for Genesta.
Yeah, she reminds him of himself, doesn't she?
Because she ran away to Yorkshire and she's got quite a thick Yorkshire accent. And he's like, if we make out alive, we will get out alive. You know, you can travel with me. Obviously, that doesn't come to fruition.
Yeah, sadly not. And she's sort of left in limbo, really, isn't she? Because it's like this mystery of, was she even a real person? And then eventually the way the story goes, when the Doctor, to defeat the Valiards, he basically uses the telepathic circuit to send a message to his earlier self before he and Mel visited Zastros 8, and tells him to instead turn the TARDIS towards the Lacurtian system where that deadly radiation is. And so that's his sacrifice, really, isn't it? And so, yeah, that which leads to the Doctor regenerating. And because of the regeneration, that cuts off the Nathema's connection, because his mind also regenerates. That changes when it becomes the Seventh Doctor. And so that is his way of stopping the Valiard's plan, which is quite a clever little twist there at the end, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's quite satisfying.
And so instead, what you then end up with sort of like a ghost of the Sixth Doctor, really, isn't it? The one who we have been with throughout all this story doesn't actually remember this story. He's like, it's an alternative timeline version, because he regenerates before this, technically, in a weird timey-wimey way. But yeah, and I suppose that's the sense that this isn't your standard regeneration story at all, because for the Doctor's last adventure, he doesn't actually remember it or even get to experience it. It's not just a memory wipe, it is literally an event that doesn't happen in the end because he stops it from happening.
Yeah, I mean, it beats a bang on the head, I guess.
Yeah, that's true. There we go. But so he never even got to meet Genesta, technically. You know, the version of the Doctor that we carry on with doesn't know who Genesta is, if she ever was real, or was it just a construct made by the Valiards
or the
to
Matrix,
play with the Doctor? Yeah.
So I guess that's the synopsis. What do you make of this story, The Brink of Death?
I think it's fine. It's not my favourite of the box set. It's not my least favourite of the box set either.
I think it's the third best.
Yeah, I'd put it there too.
I'd go Stage Fright, End of the Line, then I'd go Brink of Death, then I'd go Red House.
It does feel like an unusual choice in the end to have the Sixth Doctor's final story just be a 1 hour one.
Yeah.
Not at least a 2-disc worth one, because even though it is this box set, it's more an overarching thing with the Valiard, isn't it? Like, for the Doctor, it is just yet another adventure, really, for the most part. And I like that for the last adventure, how it is a celebration of the Sixth Doctor on Big Finish as well, because you do have all the different companions there with Constance, Flip, and Charlie. Sadly, no Evelyn, of course, because Maggie Stables had passed by this time. I think they said very much, she would have been involved.
I think
the opportunity.
She is the key to the Sixth Doctor, so it sort of feels wrong to celebrate Colin's Doctor without her, in a way, but obviously circumstances never allowed it.
I think there must have been a reference to her in one of these stories, though.
I think it must be in Stage Fright, where it's like really heavy continuity.
Yeah.
So
I mean, at the end You do get a Night After Doctor moment at the end where he lists off his companions before regenerating.
Hmm.
Of course, missing out Hebe now.
Yeah. Oh, there we go. Damn. No
I mean,
canon.
yeah. Nick Briggs did sort of leave a caveat in there though, because he lists off their names and then says and all the others. So
Oh, he's yeah. Well, safe.
yeah, yeah, he's left that wiggle room to say there's more of them. He just couldn't be bothered to list off.
Yeah. The radiation was hitting him then.
Yeah, it was too late then. He was running out of time.
Yeah. Just get a little McCoy nagging at him, going, "Come on, it's my turn now.
Yeah, it's far from being all over. Let me have my go.
I will regenerate."
Yeah, yeah, it's a weird ending, isn't it? With
It's
that.
very abrupt in a way, I guess, because you know how it ends already with like Time in the Rani, but yeah.
Yeah, it's sort of more of a in his head type of thing, isn't it? Really similar to what you get with Caves Van Drazani, the Fifth Doctor's regeneration. There, like, there's not literally all these voices going around, all these heads popping up and floating anywhere. It's just a representation of what's going on in his head. Or I think Big Finish came along and made it a psychic intrusion of some kind involving Nissa, didn't they?
Yeah.
But yeah, nevertheless, it's more of a abstract thing, I suppose, at the end there. And I say it works for the ending, but yeah, it does suddenly go a bit abrupt when he cuts to the credits.
Yeah, it's just a bit of a weird story because it doesn't have like a build or an end, really, does it? Like, it's got to end to Time in the Rani.
Yeah, like we said about the Valiard's plan, it's essentially already completed by the time the story starts. So you don't really have you don't have much of the Valiard being the actual villain here.
Mm-hmm.
He's just sort of there laughing at the Doctor that he's already won until he hasn't.
Yeah.
Which is a shame. It feels like more could have been done with the Valiards, like throughout, really, not just in this story. I don't think the Valiard has ever quite met his full potential.
I feel like the Valiard's one of those characters what's better in fan sort of mystery. Like the Watcher,
Yeah,
the more you chip at him, the less exciting the character becomes.
Yeah, like, it's been around for so long now that it'd feel wrong to solve that mystery, really. And I mean, this sort of presents a potential answer in that he's a Time Lord Black Ops weapon. But then that's sort of thrown into the possibility that that was a red herring thrown in there by the Valiards. Because even like, not just that as an explanation, but just the way it's revealed in the story so matter-of-factly just feels wrong. So yeah, I mean, we could just dismiss that as the Valiard while being Genesta sort of throwing the Doctor a red herring there.
Yeah.
Yeah, overall, it's fine, serviceable.
I think
right way to spend an hour, but for a Regeneration story, I think that's it. Really, it's nothing.
You want more from it.
Yeah, you
expect. You expect more from it, like Mel to be a bigger part of it.
Yeah, she's completely sidelined.
Yeah, literally, she's just sort of left on the market doing her own thing. Yeah, I think this is one what's definitely gone down in my estimation.
Yeah, I agree. I suppose maybe returning to it without the hype of the last adventure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it sort of makes you realise that it is just okay in the end.
And I think you know what type of quality Big Finish can do. And I don't think this is it.
No, that's true. I think you have a few other stories like this that are just like the end of the box set. Oh, we have to tie things up now. And they don't always do it in the most exciting way.
It's kind of like the parts are more exciting than the actual thing itself, really. That was the overall story.
Yeah, the build up to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, what would you rate this one overall?
I feel like I'm tempted to say either a 6 or a 7.
I think 6 would be fitting for
Yeah, let's
Sixth
go.
Doctor.
All right, I'll go six. I'll go
Yeah.
six.
And it is a good one, and like we say, Colin has many great big finishers out there, and I still say the Last Adventure is worthwhile getting because End of the Line and is it Stage Fright? That's it.
Stage Fright's
Two
my favorite.
brilliant stories. Yeah,
Yeah, I
that
think.
is Flip and Jago and Lightfoot in there, so
I,
can't go wrong with that story.
yeah, I feel like Stage Fright offers something different because it homages other regenerations, but doing something different with them. I
It's also
think.
quite creepy, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think that sort of Victoriana setting, a bit like Ultimate Foe, it sort of mirrors that feel when you get in around like Mr. Popperwick's place.
Oh yeah,
It
sort of the
has that,
fun world side of
yeah,
things.
it gives me that sort of vibe, and I feel like that feels more doom ridden than what you get with a space station. Yeah, that's just
Yeah,
my personal viewpoint on it, really. I just prefer that setting to what we get in this.
yeah, I agree there. But yeah, like we say, it's often. I mean, it's on sale while we are recording this, which is not much good to you in
Yeah,
the future on the 11th of December. We don't know quite what state it is in at that point.
they could be
Uh,
sold out for all we know.
yeah, it could be sold out by then. Our little speech earlier about how it's been in stock this whole time might not be the case. But yeah, I think certainly wait for it to go on sale if you want it because it is so often on sale that you'll probably buy it and end up kicking yourself a couple of days later.
Yeah, I mean it's worth getting it because it's one for the fans. It's a box set one. It's one to fill in gaps.
It's a
It's
piece of Doctor Who history, isn't it? Also.
it's a must have, isn't it? Really?
Yeah. And I think that's the thing with everything that we're going to be reviewing throughout the Regeneration Advent calendar. They are very much the milestones in Doctor Who's history, one way or another.
Yes.
Yeah, they are the landmark stories, really. And even with that, sometimes the quality is not quite there. So we'll see what tomorrow brings with Time and the Rani.
Yes. Very exciting indeed.
Mm.
Well, I guess all what's left to say is if you enjoyed this, and like and subscribe. And thank you, Luke, for joining me again for another day.
Thank you, Ben, for having me.
And I guess we'll see you for tomorrow for Time the Rani. Time and time melts for snowman.
Indeed, it does. Take care, everyone.
Bye bye.